welcome back to But Why the Podcast, and today we're getting creepy, kooky, mysterious, and spooky. We're talking about the Addams Family. As always, I'm Kate, and I'm here with Adrian.
Hey, how's it going?
And Matt.
Hello.
And it's October, which means it's spooky month, which means it's also the month of Alex.
Yeah, I'm back for a whole month.
Yeah. So why don't you tell anybody who hasn't probably listened to this podcast and doesn't already think that you're our fourth unofficial host, why you're here and what you do?
Yeah, so aside from being a big Addams Family fan, I am the assignment editor at FrightDay.com, a genre and horror news and review website. Grew up watching the movies, a little bit of the TV show, the cartoon, had an Uncle Fester action figure. Like, this is more my jam than you would probably expect, since otherwise I'm like, you know, a pretty, I'd say probably like fairly clean cut looking, like positive, happy person. Like, I was brought on for the Mr. Rogers episode, so if that tells you anything.
And the Steve Rogers episode.
And the Steve Rogers episode, and
Alex
now I'm here also for the Addams Family.
Addams is all the pop culture Rogerses.
Basically, yeah. But yeah, so I like spooky stuff, I like horror, I like the Addams Family, and that's why I'm here. And thanks for having me. It is always really fun.
Now for a whole month.
Yes.
So our first question is, who's your favorite Addams and why? Alex, you're last.
Okay.
Adrian?
This is a question I don't think I've ever been asked before, and I'm like vigorously trying to like see who I like more. I think Uncle Fester. Because I'm thinking about like the movie, right? The movie is like my jam. That's where I spent. And I think Uncle Fester is my favorite. Uncle Fester or Pugsley, because like, you know, they're a good duo. I don't know. I like them.
Pugsley is also like the purest spirit of the entire like Addams clan.
I think that's why I like him. I think that might be it. Yeah, Uncle Fester and Pugsley, and you know, Lurch is, you know, I'm a big fan of big things, and Lurch is the man, unsung hero of the Addams Family.
That is a reference to the Vin Diesel and Rock episodes in Fast and the Furious.
We got it in, guys. Even in month of Alex, we're still talking about Fast and the Furious. You're welcome.
Matt?
I'm trying to think, because like Adrian, I've never actually thought like who's my favorite. It's been a while. Because obviously I'm going off probably the older movies as well.
I think it's safe to assume that the bulk of all of our information comes from the 90s movies.
Yeah, I know other stuff existed, and obviously I do remember watching the early TV show. I watched some of that stuff, but yeah. I'm gonna go with probably I have a toss up between Wednesday and Thing. Only because Thing usually has an attitude. That's what I'm going with.
I mean, you're not wrong. Thing definitely hasn't. Those are probably the two most attitude people in the in the Addams Family.
Very true.
I think seems like our favorites are brands, so I think I know whose Kate's is without her even saying it.
You want to guess?
Wednesday?
No.
Or Morticia?
Morticia.
Yeah. I mean, those are pretty. Yeah.
So it was Wednesday when I was young, but I've grown now. And it is Morticia, and a lot of it is, one of the gifs I use all the time if you follow me on Twitter is from, I think it's Addams Family Values, where she says, we feast on those who would subdue us.
Oh, yeah, the Addams Family motto.
Yep.
Yes.
I love Morticia Addams. I love Angelica Houston a whole damn bunch, which is why I was super excited when she was in John Wick 3.
She's so good in that role.
She really is. She's terrifying. And yeah, no, I just love Morticia. Growing up, I actually always really loved Gomez and Morticia's relationship. And then, now that I'm older and I rewatch the Addams Family, like, Morticia is shady. Like, everything she says, she is just cutting people. And like, one of my other favorite ones is betraying the family I can understand, but Debbie Pastels?
Yeah. Debbie's the worst.
Debbie really is. But yeah, so Morticia. But
Okay.
it was Wednesday when I was young, so you're not wrong, Adrian. I've just grown.
I have to say, yeah, when I was younger, Wednesday was probably my favorite, mostly because I had like a real big crush on her in those movies. Which so at some point that had come up when I was talking to Kelsey, my I guess now fiance. It was like, oh well, who did you have a crush on as a kid? And I had said Wednesday, and then like months later, she had this shirt on. I was like, oh, I really like that shirt, and she was like, is it because it looks like Wednesday Addams? And then I was like, oh no, how deeply seated is this?
I never outgrew it.
Right? It was like a black shirt with a white collar, and as soon as she said that, I was like, I don't know that you're wrong. But I think now, honestly, Gomez is probably my favorite. There's this like very like chaotic, slight, like almost wholesome energy to him, and like a sense of like duty and family and respect. But then just like he's super weird and funny and great.
So, Alex.
Yeah, basically, like he resonates with me in a weird way that I didn't expect. And also, just the movie's like it's such an iconic performance, and so like the mustache, the costuming, everything.
Shout out to Raul Julia, who I will talk a lot about because I love that man, and it makes me so sad that he died so early.
Seriously.
And it got dark and heavy.
To bring that around real quick, when you were talking about how much you love Angelica Houston, something that's been in the back of my head for like I'm gonna say the better part of a decade at this point is that I would love to see Wes Anderson do a live action Addams Family and keeping Angelica Houston as like Morticia or Grandmama or something, since he works with her.
Yeah.
But I feel like his aesthetic and how weird and offbeat that family is, it would be potentially a very, very good movie.
That is actually a very odd pairing that works.
Right?
Like I would love to see that. Because all you would have, because essentially, if you look at the aesthetic of the old Addams Family movies, and you look at kind of like the vibrant but muted,
the video froze for me,
but muted, palette that Anderson always uses, it kind of fits.
Yes.
Okay, now we're gonna dive into the meat of this episode, which I'm actually really excited. I usually have like really, really deep episodes, but this, I mean, our connections to the Addams Family is deep. But this is going to be really lighthearted and fun. Kind of like our Borderlands episode. So,
yeah, we have 4 and like less than a quarter of notes.
Guys, I usually have 10.
Yeah.
I know.
This is very surprising, and I'm excited to see how much the love goes. Because if it's a short notes, Kate has lots to say about the short stuff that's about to go on. So for those of you who are patrons and you see the notes, you're going to be a little surprised that this isn't normal Kate.
Did you just say she's like Queen of Filler?
Yeah.
Look, mister, we're going to talk about Fable for 30 minutes.
But
I fit it in there.
Conversation, though. I mean, it worked. Kind of. Maybe. I don't know.
It was co-op. But yeah, so the Addams Family is a fictional household created by American cartoonist Charles Addams. Addams is spelled the same way for his name. The Addams Family includes Gomez and Morticia, Wednesday, Pugsley, Uncle Fester, Grandmama, Lurch the Thing, and Cousin It. I used to get called Cousin It when I was little because I don't believe in brushing my hair. I never have, and when I was younger...
That's such a good nickname.
My grandpa refused to let me cut my hair for the longest time, so it was like super, super long, and I just like ran around like a wild child, and then I got gum in it one time, and then it was Matilda haircut all the way from there.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And then I was called Mowgli.
One Addams that, and I don't know where this falls on here, but Pubert.
Oh yeah, Pubert from Family Values.
If I remember right, Pubert is Pugsley's original name, and like nobody would let him print that or put it in a movie or anything, and so they changed it to Pugsley.
Pubert is also just a terrible, great name.
Right? It's awful. Like it is absolutely awful.
But Pubert in Family Values is amazing.
Be born with a mustache.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So they originally appeared as an unrelated group of 150 single-panel cartoons, about half of which were originally published in The New Yorker between their debut in 1938 and Charles Addams' death in 1988. What it means by unrelated is that there was no real cohesive story that took you through this. You just knew they were a family, and they appeared all the time. Their relationship was the only connective tissue between the individual panels. As as a family, Gomez and Pugsley are Gomez and Pugsley. Oh, I want to see a pug dressed up as Pugsley.
Oh, that's very good.
Right? Matt, we need to get a pug, and then I can name him Pugsley.
No.
Yes. It has to
No.
happen.
Spend money on a pun.
For the gram?
No. The fact that you said for the gram makes it extra no.
What if it was for the
Yeah.
Vine?
Well,
the
now it'd have to
TikTok?
it'd be even longer, so it'd be a TikTok now. Because apparently
You don't.
we went
don't
from
wanna spend
annoying
money.
people in 15 seconds to annoying people in a minute.
You don't want to spend money on the pun Pugsley?
No.
Oh my gosh.
I also feel like that has been taken multiple times over the years. So I don't know how
care,
like,
Matt.
original
I've never
that
seen
is.
it, so it's new in my mind.
I don't think that's how that works.
Yes, it is. When it comes to how characters are, Gomez and Pugsley are enthusiastic, Morticia is even in disposition, muted and witty, Grandma Frump is foolishly good-natured, Wednesday is her mother's daughter, of course, and they're a closely-knit family, with Morticia being the head of the family, and ultimately a lot of the troubles that they end up having within the different different iterations of the Addamses?
Iterations?
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good word for it.
Iteration. Yeah, in the different iterations. I promise I have degrees, guys. In the different iterations is because of Grandmama. Overall, they're also super, super rich. Like, real rich. Like,
Inexplicably.
keep a lion in your house and have a giant room of gold rich. And so, like, when we go into the history is mainly looking through their adaptations because they have been adapted many, many times. So outside of the comic, there is the 1964 live-action television series on ABC.
Which actually,
Then
I've seen
they-
some of those. They're not
I
that
have
bad.
two. I like
It's all
them.
on Hulu, and I think you can buy the box set for like $30.
Well, there you go.
I watched them all 2 years ago to they were buffers between my 31 Days of Horror. It's real good. Then there was a 1977 made-for-TV film, which was Halloween with the Addams Family. And then the Addams Family first appeared in an animated appearance was on the third episode of the new Scooby-Doo movies. Scooby-Doo Meets the Addams Family, aka Wednesday is Missing, which first aired on CBS Saturday morning in 1972. 4 of the original cast, John Astin, Carolyn Jones, Jackie Coogan, and Ted Cassidy, all returned for the special, which involved the Addamses in a mystery with the Scooby-Doo gang. The Addams Family characters were drawn to the specifications of the original Charles Addams cartoons, which is something we'll talk about later on at the end of this episode. And after the episode aired, fans wanted more animated adventures featuring the Addamses, and so Hanna-Barbera made a cartoon, which first aired in 1973, which I don't know if any of you all saw the old cartoon, like the old one, but I remember watching that on Boomerang.
I don't know that I've
Yeah.
seen it, actually. I think I've seen stills from it, but I haven't watched an episode.
They
Yeah,
have
I've
a
seen
house
the-
car.
Yeah, I've seen the newer one, but I have not seen the 70s one.
They're pretty
I saw-
similar.
I saw the 71s on Boomerang, and it also like shows how rich they are too, in that cartoon because it's cartoon, right? So you can just do stupid stuff with money.
Oh, yeah.
I googled it because I was curious, and Forbes in this 2007 article says that Gomez Addams is worth $2 billion,
I love it.
which is a
I
lot of
love
money.
it so much.
So is that $2 billion from when they were created, or is it $2 billion now?
Good
Oh,
question.
dear.
This is also
'Cause I know that's
2007
been an
article,
issue
so,
with, like, a lot of these
even with
characters.
inflation, that'd be even more, right? So
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because that's what I was wondering with a lot of these characters, because people try to use that as an example to justify, like, oh, even this, cartoon or animated or just TV character is only worth this much compared to that. And I'm like, yeah, but they were created in 1956. So were they worth $6 billion in 1950? Or are they worth $6 billion now?
$2 billion in 1960 is a lot of money.
How much is it?
Enough to put money in a line in your house in a trapdoor.
And a giant room of gold.
I don't know. I'll look for the inflation thing and I'll get back to you.
In the 90s is when we get the next round of Addamses. and that is in the Addams Family, which first came out in 1991. This has an amazing cold open where carolers are inexplicably singing like away from the house, like with their backs to the door, and the camera pans up with the theme music, not the actual song, just the music. And they like drop boiling stuff on them, and it is great, and I loved it. And it like goes like the Addams family comes out of the cauldron, like the words. It's really good. The second one was Addams Family Values in 1983. And in between these two, there was a second animated series, which I watched a whole that and the Beetlejuice series were two things that I watched like nonstop. They were so good. Sadly, Raul Julia died mid-90s, and following his death, the series was rebooted in 1998 with a direct-to-video film starring Tim Curry and Daryl Hannah, and it also had a live-action spin-off TV series, which ran from 1998 to 1999.
I feel like I've seen this, and I feel like I just don't recall it that well because I did not like it, so it's like...
real bad.
Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure I've seen it, but it's one of those so bad that I've like wiped it from existence.
It's really bad, and they redid the Addams Family theme song to like this. It's the new Addams Family.
Yep. Now you're getting me.
It was so bad.
Yep. There we go. Coming back now.
It was really bad. Which makes me sad because Tim Curry is amazing, but he just looks horrible as Gomez. Like. I think one of the things that happened with the 91 ones is it kind of made it so that nobody who doesn't look like Raul Julia can play Gomez Addams.
Yeah. I saw a lot of people mad about the new animated series, or the new animated film, saying that Gomez didn't look right, and I'm like, you mean he doesn't look like Raul Julia?
Yes, that's the problem. And because Oscar Isaac, go to Sucker Punch, looks exactly like...
He would have been such a good live-action Gomez.
Yeah, I'm happy he's the voice of Gomez, but like, you missed a big mark. He could have been live action.
Quick note. I found some stuff. $2 billion in 1960 would be $16 billion now. And I like, just before we move on, the trilogy of the Addams Family stuff. I think it's hilarious because Barry Sonnenfeld, you may remember that name from our Men in Black episode, also is the director of those movies and Men in Black and Wild Wild West. I love his filmography. Like, you go from Addams Family to Men in Black, then to Wild Wild West. And
it's perfect.
You mean we skip Wild Wild West?
It's so good. It's perfect. Do not
skip
slander Wild Wild West.
I kind of want to watch that as like a triple feature.
Right?
Yes. Patreon supporters, if you're listening, give us
Make
two of
Matt
those
watch
movies.
Wild Wild West.
Do you not remember that Will Smith gave up The Matrix for Wild Wild West?
Worth it.
And it was the best thing ever.
No.
And I feel like he said since then that he doesn't regret it because he knows he couldn't have done The Matrix justice.
Yeah, he has.
That's what they always say, because that has what you have to say.
And then we
no, because like Billy Crystal talks about how
music.
He messed up when he didn't take Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah, and people, and like when you say that, people still give him shit for it too.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like he admits it. He's like, yeah, that was definitely a mistake. I'm not going to say, oh, I couldn't have done it. I'm going to say I wish I had.
All I'm saying is Wild Wild West is good.
No, it's
That's
not.
a fact.
It's good.
Kevin Kline and Will Smith and the weird Colonel Sanders man.
Yeah, it's good. That's good.
The fact that you call him the weird Colonel Sanders man.
Thank you, Barry Sonnenfeld, for giving us Wild Wild West and the Addams Family
Thank
in
you.
the same
Men in Black.
couple of decades.
But as we move down the line of iterations and Gomez's, Nathan Lane comes into it because he played Gomez in the musical adaptation. And I looked up pictures. He does not make a bad Gomez.
Really?
Yeah, surprisingly.
I
He
don't remember
works
what-
when Tim Curry couldn't.
Oh, yeah, that actually works.
I don't remember what Nathan Lane looks like.
He looks like a Disney cartoon come to life.
He does. I mean, isn't Nathan Lane just a Disney cartoon come to life?
Right? Like the voice, the facial features, all of it. The overly expressive eyebrows.
He just looks like an older version.
Yep. It was real good. But yeah.
Is that Wednesday or supposedly his wife?
That's Wednesday.
Okay, I was like,
That's
it looks
Wednesday.
a little too old. Okay.
I think there's still a Broadway thing going on, right? Like he's still doing it.
Yeah, I believe so.
I like Googling to see if there's musicals, and there is still a musical going on in 2019. I don't know if Nathan Lane's still on that, but
I hope he
in Europe.
is. And then Bebe Neuwirth played Morticia in that. It opened on Broadway, and it was nominated for 2 Tony Awards and 8 Drama Desk Awards. In addition to those Addamses, there are also video game Addamses, which I did not know, and I'm very sad that I didn't know, and now I want to go get an emulator so I can play these games. The first is called Fester's Quest. It came out in 1989, and it was a top-down adventure game which featured Uncle Fester. 1992 had 2 versions of the Addams Family, which were released by Ocean Software based on the 1991 movie, an 8-bit version for the Nintendo Entertainment System, Game Boy, Sega Master System, and Sega Game Gear, as well as the ZX Spectrum and Commodore 64. I forgot about those last 2. Forgot they were a thing. And a 16-bit version, which was released for the Super Nintendo, the Amiga, forgot that was a thing, the Atari, and the Sega Man Drive / Genesis.
Pretty sure I played that game.
I've played it, I haven't finished it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not one of those I'm like, oh yeah, I finished this, but I was like, I'm pretty sure I played that.
Later in 1990, well, before that, in 1991, Incom Simulations published the Addams Family video game for the TurboGrafx. I like GraphX with an F and not a PH and no I. CD in 1991. And then there was a sequel to that game called The Addams Family, Pugsley's Scavenger Hunt, which came out in 1993. That one was also done by Ocean Software and was based on the ABC animated series and was released for NES, Super Nintendo, and the Game Boy. 1994, you get the Addams Family Values, which was also by Ocean and was based on the movie sequel and returned to the style of gameplay that we saw in Fester's Quest. There was a Game Boy Color game that was released in the 1990s for promotion of the new Addams Family. The really, really awful live action TV series that they did, and it was called the New Addams Family series. Finally, an arcade shocker, the new Addams Family Electric Shock Machine, also known as Electrifying, was released by Eurocom and Nova Productions in 1989. That one I actually remember.
I've played that one, yeah. I mean, I played a couple of these, but that one I know for sure I've played.
It was really fun.
Wasn't it just hold on while you get electrocuted?
Yes, and you would just see how many people could hold on, like, longer than other people. It was so fun.
Yeah, we had this in our Peter Pipers back home.
Yeah.
Should have just tased people.
It was so fun.
That's Matt's idea of an arcade, is just tasing kids in an alley.
I mean, that's the Addams Family idea of a game, literally.
That's true. What's the game that Wednesday plays with Pugsley? Is there a god?
Yes.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite moments.
I do want to say, when are we doing the episode where we can talk about 90s video games where they just made a video game out of everything?
Oh, the cross-promotional market. Yeah, that's...
Yeah.
Licensed products in general are fascinating.
I know, but, like, we don't even get the video games anymore. But, like,
yeah.
90s, man, they were giving you, like, TV series, you're getting 3 games.
They were giving them you with your Pizza Hut pizzas.
And your Burger King.
And your Burger Kings, and your McDonald's, and your everything. Good times, man.
Pizza Hut is how I found out about Tony Hawk. I played the crap out of that demo. So yeah, there's also a pinball games that are out there. Didn't think it was too important, but you can play pinball, the Addams Family, which actually is a good fit.
We love that pinball machine.
And then there are 3 books. The Addams Family, which is the first novelization of the TV series written by Jack Sharkey, and it was released near the end of the show's 2nd season. The book details the family's arrival in their new home and explains how it got its bizarre decor. The arrival and origins of Thing are also explained. Each chapter reads as a self-contained story like episodes of the television show, and the novel concludes with the Addams family discovering that their lives will be the basis for a new television series. And it was published by Pyramid Books in 1965. Then there is The Addams Family Strikes Back. The Addams Family Strikes Back was written by W.F. Miksch. And this tells how Gomez plans to rehabilitate the image of Benedict Arnold by running for the local school board. The tone and characterizations of the book resemble the TV characters much more closely than the first novel. Cousin It appears as a minor character in this story, but as a tiny three-legged creature rather than the hairy, derby-hatted character seen in television and movies. The novel was published in 1965 as well. And then there is, this is my favorite name, The Addams Family in Evolution. This was published in 2010, and it is a book about the evolution of the Addams Family characters, with more than 200 published and previously unpublished cartoons, and includes texts by Charles Addams, H. Kevin Miyashiki, director of the T. and Charles Addams Foundation, and the book was published by Pomegranate Press. Yeah, that's it. That's the history. Now it's time for the But Why Those. Unless anybody has any questions on that very simple history. Okay. So the very first But Why Though is the reason we talk about a lot of stuff here. It's a pop culture staple and has also spawned, like I said, video games, academic book soundtracks, and their Grammy-nominated theme song. The family has had a profound influence on American comics as well as cinema and television, and has been seen as an inspiration for the goth subculture and its fashion, which is probably one of its largest impacts is goth girls are Wednesday. Like that's how it is. If you watch The Craft and then you look at Wednesday Addams, it's the same. It also, not only did it inspire fashion-wise and like dark tones, but also the entire stylings of the Addams Family house, which it is styled on like romantic Gothic literature and Gothic architecture, which is its own thing. The purples and the Victorian wallpaper, all that stuff that was inside the Addams Family house has transferred into a lot of goth culture so far as like decorating merchandise, that kind of stuff, whether it's a part of the Addams Family or not.
Does anybody even use wallpaper anymore? Is that still a thing?
That's a good question.
Because I don't think you should put wallpaper on like stuccoed walls, which is...
I remember when I was a kid, my mom had wallpaper, and then she hated it all the time. And that's about the only thing I know about
I remember
wallpaper.
my mom like steaming it.
Yep.
Off of a wall one time. So one of the other things I want to talk about when you look at pop culture staples is that the other thing that comes into the conversation is the Munsters. So the Munsters ran at the exact same time as the Addams Family, but the Addams Family cartoon or comic strip predated the Munsters. But they did run competitively against each other, and they did a lot of the same things. The only difference is the Munsters are actual monsters.
Yes. What is it? It's a Frankenstein married to a Morticia type character whose father is a vampire and their son is a werewolf.
Yes.
Yep.
And they have like the really pretty, like perfectly 1950s neighbor.
Yes. And also Rob Zombie's song Dragula is about the vampire grandpa's car.
Yes.
Yes.
And I cannot get away from that. It's the funniest thing to me.
That song's great though.
Also, it had Fred Gwynn playing Herman. Herman was the
I think so.
dad,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Herman Munster. Which, if you've seen Pet Sematary, he is the guy who says dead. Fuck.
Sometimes dead is
Sometimes
better.
dead is better. Yeah. In a very, very thick Maine accent. But yeah, so these are they're both really formative shows. But ultimately the reason the Addams Family has had a lasting longer impact is because the Addams Family has been iterated on multiple times with success, whereas the Munsters had one, I think it was called like 1313 Mockingbird Lane or something, so it wasn't called the Munsters, but it only lasted for a pilot, which was really sad because the pilot was really good. So that is one of the reasons why we talk about the Addams Family. Wow, we don't necessarily like know too much about the Munsters other than how people looked.
I didn't like them though, so that was fine.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't care for them.
Why?
They were happy, jolly people.
They were really happy and jolly. They were less macabre than the Addamses. Definitely. Ultimately, according to the Telegraph, the Addamses are one of the most iconic families of American history, and they are ranked up there with the Kennedys. Similarly, Time compared the relevance and cultural reach of the family with those of both the Kennedys and the Roosevelts, so much a part of the American landscape that it's difficult to discuss the country's history without mentioning them. For TV Guide, which listed characters in the top 10 of 60 greatest TV families of all time, the Addamses provided the design for cartoonish clans to come, like the Flintstones and the Simpsons. Beyond that, owning their popularity, the first feature-length adaptation has been identified as a cult film, while The Addams Family Values was listed as one of the 50 best family films by The Guardian and nominated for AFI's 100 Years, 100 Laughs of the Century. Reggie's portrayal of Wednesday in the film series was ranked as one of the 100 greatest movie characters by Empire.
See, Alex, you have stuff to back up your Wednesday crush.
Yeah?
I mean, and Christina Ricci's still hot.
Yeah, but one last Munster thing, I guess the thing that really bugged me about them, because they were literally a boring family. They just happened to be Munsters. There was nothing unique about them except they were just monsters. But besides that, they were just boring.
Yeah, but I think that's its own kind of fun for a sitcom. I mean, like just taking something kind of weird and then making it ordinary. Like, I know none of my friends have really watched the show in any sort of depth, but Dinosaurs is just an American family sitcom, but with animatronic suits.
Yes.
Yes.
No, I think you're completely right, and I do love the Munsters, but I do think that there is a lot of darkness and commentary that happens in the Addams Family that you don't get in the Munsters because of that. So the next part, or it's kind of like the two-parter to this pop culture staple, is everybody knows the Addams Family theme song. I feel like if I walk into the middle of the crowd and I go da 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 da, somebody will snap.
Absolutely.
Nobody hears
I wanted
snap,
to do it just now.
Made me sad. But like, it's extremely iconic, and it's not even the words. It's just the. This is so good. But the cool thing about the theme song is there are a lot of variations on it. Specifically, my favorite, which came from the 1991 film's release, which was producers wanted an updated version of the classic song, something that would attract both fans of the TV show as well as new fans. So they enlisted the vocal stylings of one Mr. MC Hammer.
Yes. I was listening to the oral history of MTV, and they talked about this music video.
It's really good. I just watched it like 4 times before we recorded. I added it to my spooky playlist for my Halloween party. I'm very excited. It's called Addams Groove. I'm gonna put the video in the show notes because everybody needs to listen to it and party spookily with MC Hammer. The Hammer version features rap verses which directly tie into the plot of the film, accompanied by familiar riffs of the theme song. It was also used in the sequel Addams Family Values, and it was popular for films at the time to create a theme song just for the film, like Ghostbuster, and apparently Speed also had its own theme song.
Was it
I
just
don't know
a bus
who did
engine?
It was from Billy Idol, called Speed.
White Wedding?
Yeah, so after that, it also has had pop rock covers. So there is Caspian and then Mannheim Steamroller. both covered the Addams Family theme song for the Halloween themed albums, and both of the songs alter the original significantly, but maintain the melody, which is kind of what everybody does. Also, for the TV movie or the TV movie reboot with Tim Curry, Addams Family Reunion, there was an R&B group called Straight Vocals. You can guess how that was spelled. It was the 90s.
No, you can't.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. It was
This
90s spelling.
STRATE.
And
Yep.
vocals with a Z.
Well, who would guess the first half of that? The Z is obvious. The 90s are
People
defined by the superfluous Z's and X's.
People who listened to 90s R&B.
That's okay. That's fair.
Because I was like, oh yeah, I didn't think twice when I wrote straight vocals on here. And they also recorded a version of the theme song, but people didn't like it, like at all. Well, nobody liked the movie, so they kind of had everything stacked against them too.
That too. I don't think as a kid I even knew that Addams Family Reunion happened.
I remember it, but I would say, like, ultimately, like, when it comes to all the covers, the weird thing is the R&B one sounds the most similar. It's just, like, completely a cappella.
Oh, I need to listen to this later.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's pretty good. Yeah, I like it. I also Google it, and the Addams Family theme song on this one list in 2019, the 50 greatest TV theme songs of all time for live action, which I think is a good distinction, right? Because there's so many.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, yeah, live action ranks number 7 on this list.
Oh, what's number 1?
Number 6, Mission Impossible. 5, Batman. 4, Cheers. 3, SWAT. 2, The Rockerford Files. And number 1, Hawaii Five-0.
What the hell was 2?
I have no idea.
What
but
was
I think
3?
I think an old person did this.
Yeah.
So I recognized some of them, but then they had the 2. I think it was 2 and 3 that I was like, what?
Can you
Oh,
find
yeah, the
somebody
Rockefeller
under
Files
the
is
age
the-
of 50? Who
Is that like
made
30
this?
Rock?
Yeah, it's these is old people. It's like SWAT. It's like
What is SWAT? I remember it was a bad movie from like 2004
Ethan
or
Hawke.
something.
whoa.
You show
Relax,
LL
man.
Cool J some respect.
Relax.
Was that the one with
Oh, that's
Ethan
the
Hawke?
da-na-na. Ba-na-na-na, ba-na-na-na. It's like the same theme song they do in the movie.
Yeah.
Ba-na-na-na-na-na.
Yeah.
That's a good movie, Matt. Get out of here. I like that movie.
But
I
it's
also like
not.
the Cool J.
Na na
But
na
it's
na.
not. Yeah.
Da 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 da.
Yeah, the
Da,
fact
da,
that
da,
we didn't even
da,
know
da, da,
the top
da,
5,
da, da.
I think says a lot.
Yes.
These
Addams
are all
Family should
movies
be number
from
1.
like the 70s and 80s, so an old person definitely made this list.
When you think about it, outside of just the melody that plays in the first Addams Family movie, they don't actually use the actual Addams Family song in it. So, like, just that melody alone.
I'll rewatch those movies.
You have to pay for them now. They're not on any streaming services. I got real sad.
Ah,
I got real
DVDs,
sad.
man. DVDs.
You have to have the VHS somewhere. That was a
Me
long time
too.
ago.
I have Family Values on VHS because my mom said, my mom loved that Wednesday destroys the Thanksgiving
oh,
party.
the speech that she gives is one of my favorite things.
It really is.
Yeah, that's great.
You should say
Okay.
that in here. But yeah, so beyond that, the Addams Family also represents an ideal family in a very unideal way for the times. So the Addamses are essentially a satirical inversion of what the 20th century American family was supposed to be. So the family overall is an odd, wealthy, aristocratic clan who delight in the macabre and are pretty much unaware, or depending on the iteration, they're either unaware that people don't like them and find them scary, or they know that people don't like them and find them scary, but they're perfectly okay with it and they just don't care. Both of those
I do find
are
it better when
subversion.
I do find it better when they seemingly unaware of it.
Yeah. I mean, which is kind of like what Addams Family, the '90s movies are, and like that entire MC Hammer song is just saying like they do whatever the hell they want.
Yes.
That's all that one is. I think in the iterations where they don't know, where the iterations where they don't care, it feeds more into the idea that the Addams family exists to subvert the ideas of what families should be. The fact that Morticia and Gomez are extremely sexual is something that you didn't see a lot of in the 60s and like on TV, and it was the exact opposite of the way that couples were supposed to behave in public. You also have Morticia as she is never painted to be domineering. She is just painted to be the head of the household. The tropes are inverted between her and Gomez. Gomez is completely all over her all the time, tells her how much he loves her all of the time, can't live without her all of the time, and Morticia is just like, yeah, I love you. That's it. And
Yeah.
she just like dictates what goes on in the house, and that in and of itself is the complete opposite of what the nuclear family should be. Beyond that, you have characters that just refuse to conform to the standards around them, even if they're not aware, and especially if they don't care that people are scared of them. And it reidifies, it pushes back against this idea that you perform everything for the outside world. Families have to be 100% all of the time, and it kind of allows for this otherness without making it weird, essentially. It makes it okay. Although most of the humor derives from the fact that they share macabre interests, the Addamses are not evil, and they're never shown as being evil. Except for Wednesday sometimes.
Yeah, I would say going back to the whole, we're going to play a game called Is There a God while Pugsley's in an electric chair.
Yeah.
Every now and then Wednesday has an evil streak.
A little bit. But at the end of the day, they're an extremely close-knit and loving family and extended family. And that even happens between Wednesday and Pugsley.
Yeah.
Like, only Wednesday can treat him like that. Like, nobody else can. Morticia is first and foremost an amazing mother, even though she is shown as being cold most of the time. And the fact that her and Gomez are able to remain passionate is something that speaks loud for romantic pairings. And then ultimately created by the television series writers. I can't say that word. She calls him Bubula.
Bula?
Bubula. I don't know.
Bubula?
I'm not Jewish. Bubula. Yeah. And then like the shtick between Gomez and Morticia is their her speaking French and then him get really, really turned on. And it's like it's a caricature, but it is completely different, and this is something that people really drew to and fell in love with. They're also really supportive of their children, and the family, as weird as they are, love visitors.
Yes.
And they don't hate them. They don't do anything. They're willing to give away so much of their money to help people all of the time, no matter what. And they do that even in the face of people not liking them, which is something that we see more happen in the 90s movies, especially Family Values.
Also, real quick, one of the comics that is maybe my favorite Morticia mom moment is just like Pugsley sticking his head out of a door and Wednesday's talking to Morticia, and the caption just says, "Don't come whining to me, go tell him you'll poison him right back." Like, yeah, that's the kind of mother she is.
And that brings us to the 90s films, because we've talked a lot about them tangentially, but like that is really like the reason why the Addams Family matters for our generation, at least. Both of the Addams Family movies in the 90s received nominations for Academy Awards, BAFTA Awards, and Hugo Awards. For her role as Morticia, Angelica Houston was nominated twice for Golden Globes for Best Actress. Raul Julia, Christina Ricci, Christopher Lloyd, and Joan Cusack all received multiple Saturn Awards. and American Comedy Award nominations for their portrayals. And the films, like, they succeeded so much. The first film succeeded so much that it inspired the animated series to come around. And that was set in the same fictional universe, and that ended up being nominated for 4 daytime Emmys, including one for Aston, who was one of the voices and one of the original members of the very original cast of the Addams Family. Beyond that, like, the 90s films are actually kind of deep. Like we talked about, Wednesday's entire monologue against the colonization of the native people of America, and it had that commentary. It had commentary on accepting yourself. It had commentary on family. It was able to do a lot, and ultimately one of the things that the 90s, I mean, the series as a whole, but mostly the way the Addams Family was represented in these 90s films, was that it was, like, and I can, like, speaking to this from, like, personal experience, like, it was a rallying call for people who didn't fit in. Like, the entirety of Addams Family values is just Wednesday and Pugsley thrown into a situation where they do not fit in with any of the people in their summer camp. And it is just them persevering through that. And Wednesday just, like, getting back to the Mean Girls.
Which, okay, so I have that speech pulled up, and the context, if you haven't seen the movie, is that they are being forced to do, like, a Thanksgiving play at this summer camp, even though it's summer, not autumn, and it's very much the, like, white public school narrative of, you know, pilgrims and natives and all that, and Wednesday kind of, like, throws a wrench in it and has the kids who were playing the natives, who are the outsiders and the not popular kids, kind of, like, overthrowing the entire production. And right before that happens, Wednesday gives the speech, "You have taken the land which is rightfully ours. Years from now, my people will be forced to live in mobile homes on reservations. Your people will wear cardigans and drink highballs. We will sell our bracelets by the roadsides. You will play golf and enjoy hot hors d'oeuvres. My people will have pain and degradation. Your people will have stick shifts. The gods of my tribe have spoken. They have said, do not trust the pilgrims, especially Sarah Miller." But, like, it's that thing of, like, this was a family movie? Like...
Yeah. So, one of my favorite images of Wednesday is her dressed up as a Native American holding the match and, like, lighting the entire set on fire.
There's also the implication at the end of that scene is that Wednesday Addams sets a child on fire.
Yes.
Yes.
Because especially Sarah Miller.
I hate Sarah Miller.
She becomes, if you don't know the actress who plays Sarah Miller in Addams Family Values, later becomes Harmony in the Buffy series.
Excellent.
Which is perfect casting. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if y'all have anything to say on the 90s movies and stuff. I know we've kind of talked about them throughout, but, like, that is, for me, like, I don't know, like, a lot of my childhood is the Addams Family and those two movies, and every time it came on, like, just rushing to the TV to watch them, especially because they always came on AMC Family. Because the cool thing was Family Values played during Thanksgiving, and it played during Halloween.
It's a autumn movie, really, 100% start to finish.
Yes.
The only two things I mean, obviously remember a lot, but two things I got. One, the perseverance when they lose their house in I don't remember which movie. I believe is it the end of the first one? Or the second one, right? And basically, Thing has to go get a job, and they all have to go get jobs, and they're living out of the apartment, and then deciding, like, oh, we can pull ourselves back up and get where we were, and Thing working basically as jobs. And basically, the sad part is when they were doing that, Grandmama basically yelling, "I'm trying to catch dinner in the backyard," and it's a dog.
I forgot about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
It's a very disturbing part, or I know it's meant to be funny, but then you're like, oh, they just ate the neighbor's dog.
No, that's the thing is, yeah, those jokes always just kind of, like, slip through and they just keep talking past them. It's like a constant theme in that franchise.
And it's the 90s, right? I don't know if you can make a dog-eating joke now.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Unless it's animated. I guess it's another thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the movies are good. I think the 90s and early 2000s do a really good job of, like, giving us live action animated movies like that, or like originated in kind of live action. I think about, like, Scooby-Doo in the early 2000s gives me a lot of, like, Addams Family vibes of, like, how good it is, how you can go watch that movie now and it probably has, like, a lot of, like, bad jokes in it, which probably does, but
so
back then, but they're so good and it was on all the time.
Except
and
the
we really
second
don't.
one. The second one
Kinda
doesn't
like-
hold up. The first one still holds up
don't
really
know.
well.
You're just saying that it's good. It's
No,
good.
we
I like it.
rewatched the second one not
Did
that
you
long
really?
ago. Yes, we did. We did it. I
Nah,
think it
don't
was
tell me
last
that.
year. Because the
Don't tell
first
me
one
that.
actually holds
Oh
up really well.
no, we did. I said that if it
Yeah.
wasn't for Scrappy, the second one would have been really, really good.
All I know is the first one holds up pretty well, and you can still watch it. The second one was tough.
But the second one, you get like kung fu fighting Sarah Michelle Gellar as Daphne.
Yeah, come on, man.
I
don't
love
like that.
them both. The first one still holds up. The second one doesn't hold up. It's too in its time, but it's still good. And I just get very happy thinking that Daphne and Fred are still married.
No, I loved them both. One thing, but like I said, rewatching them, the first one, oh yes. Second one,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I mean, and I haven't watched the Addams Family movie in years, just because I just haven't. I haven't had AMC Family in like forever, and it's not on any streaming services, so I haven't seen it in a while. But I always have like fond memories of it, right? And it's always like my titular, like that's the Addams Family for me. Even though they don't, I mean, even if it's not like how this new animated thing is or whatever, like that is the Addams Family for me. A lot of the ways that like that live action Scooby Doo, like that's Scooby Doo to me in a lot of ways too. Just
Matthew
because they're just so
Lillard
good.
is Shaggy. There's
Oh,
no
for sure.
separation between the two. It
For
makes
sure.
rewatching Scream and 13 Ghosts real hard.
Yeah, 13 Ghosts for sure. I remember watching 13 Ghosts. Spoiler: I've actually watched 13 Ghosts, and
oh, that's cool.
I thought it was hilarious because he was in it, and I was like, "That's Shaggy, dude."
I forgot he played in that movie. The only
That's
thing I remember
Shaggy.
about that movie is that person who got split in half. I think the lawyer or the person who owns it by the glass.
I love 13 Ghosts. That is an extremely underrated 2000s movie for me. It's
Yeah,
real good
it's
and real
it's
disturbing.
it's real disturbing. But like, I'm surprised. I mean, I guess I'm not that surprised about how many nominations that the movies have had. I'm surprised that it didn't win costume design. It lost out to Bugsley, whatever that movie is. That has a 6.8 on Rotten Tomato or on IMDb. So I don't think it's very good. But yeah, I think it deserves more love in the Academy than it has. But I don't know if it's because it's in like that weird niche, like this might be horror, but it's not really horror kind of thing. But they're good. I'm not super excited for the live action or the new animated series just because it kind of just looks not. I don't know.
Not Raul Julia.
Yeah,
Do we
like
want to go
Alex
into
said
the
earlier,
new one
it's
that's
not.
coming?
Well,
now?
I do want
It's
to
not Raul
say,
Julia.
I do want to say that I'm actually really disappointed with the Rotten Tomato scores for the Addams Family movies. It's a 65
What?
for
Really?
the first one.
Way better
Yeah.
than that.
It's a 65 for the first one and a 74 for the second one.
Yeah, it's a 6.9 on IMDb, which is kind of criminally underrated in my opinion.
Like, I
Huh.
do think that the second one is the better of the two. I think that this is one of the few franchises where I think that, and it's all because of Pubert and Debbie. But both of them deserve way higher.
Yeah, and it has like a really great cast, right? Like I know like a lot of stuff is put on Hasid and Royal Julia, but Christopher Lloyd is
He's a
pretty good.
great Fester,
Like,
honestly.
I
And
love
I will
him as
say,
Fester. I
Doc
like him more than the
Brown?
original.
The new Fester is
Yeah,
part of what
he's
makes
so
me
good.
for the new.
Yeah.
Nick Kroll is not Uncle Fester. It's really weird. I don't know why they thought making it this way would be the best thing when the people who are buying the tickets to go to the movies are the people who grew up on the 90s ones.
Oh yeah, I don't think any of my like nieces and nephews who are of like age that this is targeted at even know who the Addams Family.
Because when you think about it in how like generationally Addams Family content is, it is very much our parents and then us. Which I guess you could make the argument that by like making this new one in a new way, it's trying to start an entire new audience the same way the 90s ones did. But it just frustrates me. One, because I really, 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 really wanted live action Oscar Isaac as Gomez. But two, like it just looks so different.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready for that. But I will say, like, I've seen the trailer in theaters now, like, 3 or 4 times, and it's grown on me a lot. I think that the voice work will be able to carry the film depending on how they do this. Uh, that said, I just don't necessarily. I don't know. I'm not
Well,
excited. I don't hate it like I did at first, I guess, but I have very low expectations, I guess.
well, one, obviously, we talked about the Uncle Fester thing, which just looks bizarre and hard to do.
And
But
Nick
nothing.
Kroll is still Nick Kroll.
Yeah. I know for me, at least, even obviously, because I don't know if I've seen the trailer many times in theaters. I know I've seen it at least twice, I believe, and then obviously other time. Honestly, don't like some of the jokes. I really don't.
I'm on
The
IMDb.
dialogue is not great.
Snoop is playing it.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm very intrigued.
Yep.
Why isn't he playing the lion? Is my question. Why didn't they make the lion talk?
Also,
Make Snoop Lion.
Catherine O'Hara as Grandma Frump is going to be amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They have a killer cast. They have the cast that they have behind the scenes, with the exception of Pugsley and Wednesday, would work well in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Which
Except,
is,
I get it, but so far from when I've seen the trailers, just the dialogue just seems so slapstick cheesy.
Who's doing this one again?
Yeah.
Is it
I have
DreamWorks?
no. I think it's
No.
Blue Sky.
Skybound? Is it Skybound or Blue Sky?
It's whoever does Minions. I think.
Okay, that's why I'm worried about it. That's what it was.
Distributed by United Artists, releasing
Oh,
Universal
never mind.
Pictures.
It's just Universal.
Oh.
Like, as soon as they try to slip a meme into this, I'm done.
Well, no, that's
Well,
what
they've
they're
already did that.
doing. So that's the
Mm.
thing. This and this is one of those things too, whereas like I can think, like I feel like they're very much not wanting to hit us as the audience, because all of the humor I can see working well for kids, like actual kids right now, which is why I have a really hard time saying that I don't like this movie, because it is a kids movie, and that humor that is the audience that they're catering to. And so that's one of the things where it's just kind of like, I usually love animated films, but most of the animated films that I love are able to ride that line of entertaining the adult that goes with the child, not just catering only to the child. And that's one of the things that I guess is probably going to happen here, because they have.
Yeah, but has it
definitely
ever
moved up.
always been like completely towards like kids? Because it seems, I mean, I guess depending on what we definition of kid as in age wise we're shooting for, but
Well, this definitely seems like the most kiddie version of the Addams
Yes.
Family.
yes,
Like,
that's what I'm saying. Because I'm not
ever.
saying because obviously we talked about the other ones being on like AMC or ABC Family and everything. So obviously they had some sort of family or some sort of kid thing in there. But it seemed even like then we're talking about kids like that are like 12 or something,
Yeah.
or even 14. Versus this seems 8, 6.
Yeah, no, it's very much a younger kid.
Because
Like,
I'm like you. I
kids.
like a lot of animation. I watch a lot of animation. I enjoy stuff. But there's some shows that I can tell like I'm just too old, no matter how much I like animation, to
Yeah.
get this. And even if I get
Yeah.
it, I'm like, I hate it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, some stuff just isn't meant for us, I guess.
yeah,
I guess
Yeah.
my only other question, because I'm trying to think of like other stuff that's come out that's like this, and I think of like Hotel Transylvania.
That
I
was
don't know, y'all.
good. I loved
Yeah, I like-
it.
yeah, I actually
Yeah,
like that one.
Yeah, I like the Hotel Transylvania movies. I think they're really good, mainly because like they have kid stuff in there, but they have some like adult jokes in there that
Yeah.
are just not for kids. And I don't know if the Addams Family is going to have that. So I look at this as kind of just like, this is another Munsters versus Addams Family kind of thing, where you have all of the monsters, and then you have like the regular family, and that's how it kind of feels. I know that Hotel Transylvania is kind of the end of its run already, but I just don't see it being better than Hotel Transylvania. And I'm trying to like judge it against stuff that it's kind of in the same line of.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I'm not going to put this against like Minions or anything like that. But against Hotel Transylvania, I think Hotel Transylvania is just going to be a better movie. I mean, granted, we haven't seen the movie yet, but just from the trailers, Hotel Transylvania looks like a more well-rounded movie with like better writing.
Yeah.
Even though it has like Adam Sandler and Andy Samberg and Selena Gomez and Kevin James, like the writing of the movie is pretty good.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like I was pretty much done when they did the it joke, and I was like, this is stupid. I'm out.
Yeah.
And obviously for the scene, that's in pretty much
So-
all the trailers.
But that's the other thing too. So like, as much as like they did that it joke, and it was kind of like, that is the current brand of horror. Like that was the top selling horror movie of like the last 10 years. which is one of the things too. Is like when we were on the red carpet for In the Tall Grass, and I interviewed the child star there, and he was like, "Yeah, my favorite movie's It," and he like talked about it, and he talked about how scared it made him. Like it's this really weird feeling because we're in this place of remakes and reboots where I'm like, I should love this thing because I have always loved this thing, but they're getting made for new audiences that it's almost like crap. Why don't I love this?
Well, that's been the problem. I know you and I have talked about it, especially like on our other podcasts of things of like, what is their goal of this? We're not getting a full generational length. We're getting the people. We're still in like the prime demographic. You're still prime demographic. Like you were prime demographic when the movies, or I mean, obviously the movies came out before born, but like even as kids when they made it and everything, like you're still in the prime demographic of it's not like you have this full generational gap. You're only having, I watched this when I was 10. Now I'm watching it when I'm 25. I mean, you still remember that. It's not like a difference between of like I had a full generational thing. Like a difference between like
now that I'm thinking and you say it that way, the first Addams Family stuff was in 62.
Right.
63. And then it was 30 years until the next one.
Right.
Hasn't it? It's been almost 30 years since the 90s.
Oh, don't say that.
No, I mean, you are correct.
Essentially, we're looking
but I also think the difference between that, I think also the difference you have is technology we have. I mean, not everybody even owned a TV back then. Now people own phones. They watch TV on.
So
I think just
you
information.
Very much hitting like a new audience.
Yeah, you were hitting something because people didn't all have TV back then. People didn't all consume entertainment back then. There were people that lived and like probably never watched a TV show in their life, versus now, like you can't even leave your house without your phone or you feel you're you're hosed.
Yeah, I just became slightly more optimistic about this. I looked to see because I was your point's I think valid, Matt. Like who are they directing this at? So I went to go look at who is the directors for this, and they have these two guys who co-did Sausage Party. One of them did Monsters and Aliens, Madagascar, Penguins in Madagascar, and the other one did. That's basically it. But the fact that both of these guys did Sausage Party, like, gives me some hope that they're gonna slip some jokes in there that are not super kid friendly. Because how could you, if you did Sausage Party?
I think the other thing is too is like even if it's not kid friendly, I think that there's also just a gap in humor from us to now too. Like the Fortnite generation, I don't laugh at those YouTube things that are happening right now. Like from like younger people. It's very different. And so I think that like I understand and that is like a little hopeful, but the thing that keeps me not hopeful is that like the type of comedy balancing that has to happen between these two very separate types.
Which, I mean, we talk about the gap and generation keeps getting smaller and smaller of, like, I relate more to probably even somebody that's probably, like, even almost depending age of anybody, we probably relate more to somebody that's probably in their 40s versus somebody that's 20, like, in their, like, late teens, 20s. Like, just turned 21, despite the fact that the year difference is way different, only because technology and moving forward and everything else.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I will say, though, the one thing that I do like is this. The new one does seem to be focusing on like them existing as a weird family and not caring.
Which I think also might bug me because it was, I don't know.
Why?
I'm still opposed of them being like just unaware. I think works so much better.
You think them earlier you said that you don't think them being unaware, but them actually not caring that people don't like them.
I did not say that.
I thought that's what you said.
That is not even remotely close to what I said.
Everybody else, isn't that what he said?
I don't remember.
I'm not gonna get into this.
Alex is learning.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just think I think obviously we were also talking about a movie that you were talking about like as a cult film, basically is renowned and everything else. Not that the other ones earlier were not. I just think it's a different time frame of like entertainment means more, sadly, today than it did back then.
Essentially, we still play Addams Family Values every Thanksgiving.
Yes. You're not playing,
Yeah.
like, obviously we have the older ones, but you don't see those. And people, like, if you go and ask your average person that's probably your age, maybe a little older, younger, they will remember the 90s film. Not all of them probably have a clue about the older films. Or they even other things existed. They might know it, but they don't, that's not what they're doing.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think you're right, Kate. It's just time, right? We're just in that bubble where it's time for a new one. Like, we're probably going to get a new Scooby-Doo, like, in the next 10 years, probably. Because it's time for another one of those. And we're probably all gonna hate it because it's not the early 2000s one. I think that's just how it.
Matthew Lillard already hates it because nobody's talked to him about being Shaggy.
Yeah, so obviously it's already bad.
Like I said, I get the time frame, I get the group. I also think entertainment works differently in between being more accessible. That it's just hard. You need a longer time frame, and we just don't have complete generations going.
Yeah.
Through. We're basically, like I said. For us, it's like even Alex made the joke of the 90s was 30 years ago. People still think it's 5 years ago.
What it feels like.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what it literally feels like for a lot of people because one time has gone faster, but just technology and everything has evolved so much. And you have so much access. Like, could you even find, I mean, obviously Hulu and thing, but you say like streaming wise, outside of maybe streaming somebody nice, you can't just go find some of these older movies and stuff.
Yeah.
You can pick up 90s movies relatively easy.
Yeah.
We talked about playing vintage video games. You can't. I mean, Atari stuff is still out there, but I can go pick up a Super Nintendo in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, final thoughts, because that's all I have.
Yeah.
Final thoughts. I'll go first. Addams Family. I did enjoy the 90s stuff. It is one of the weird movies that when I do think about, I've seen probably the most out of like a lot of movies. Like, considering it's like, not saying it's a bad movie, but considering my top like favorite movies of just what I watch, I've seen that more than a lot of them. But I don't know. Obviously, we'll see what we do with the thing, live action. I'm used to going anime. The new animation, and everything that with that coming out and how well it's actually received among people, which I think should be interesting. But I know why it's important to people, and I don't think it's gonna go away anymore. I mean, also depending on how well this movie does.
Yeah, I mean the movies are just good, right? Even some of the TV shows and the animated stuff is been pretty well remembered, at least in my head when I think about like back to like the Boomerang days. And I know Kate mentioned it earlier, but like Morticia and Gomez are pretty much relationship goals. I'm super upset that I looked through like countless ranking things and I couldn't find them on like any list of like best couples.
Really?
And
Nonsense.
it's just nonsense, and it's very upsetting to me because I definitely put them up there like in the upper echelon of like best couples ever. It was like, oh, Rose and Jack.
What? Were they even a couple?
Yeah.
They just had a nice fling on a boat.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. These people, I don't know who does these rankings. We need to do our own rankings, but they're definitely up there. Man, when I think of like all the stuff we've covered in now 117 episodes and all the stuff we've covered through Patreon, like they're definitely top tier, like S tier couple goals, and I think that's super important.
Matt? Oh wait, you went already. Me. I don't know. I've spilt how much I loved it. Like when I was younger, like Wednesday made me feel real good about myself. Like she didn't care and she was just who she was, and she actively fought the mean kids, which is great. And now I just love Morticia. In all honesty, and the Addams Family is always gonna have a special place in like my spooky heart, and also, like I feel like if you just go, don't do anything, people are gonna know exactly what you're doing. So that's all I have for my final thoughts. It's not super deep, but
I like that.
I just love it.
To be fair, before Alex goes, and I know I don't want to ruin his awesome speech, the snap thing might be overtaken by the Switch though soon.
Like the Nintendo Switch sound effects?
Oh,
Yes, because that thing
yeah.
is driving me insane with every trailer.
They use a lot.
Yeah.
They're training us like dogs.
But it's such a satisfying noise.
Oh my god, they are!
As a person who deals with trailers every day and disperses all the stuff for gaming for our website, I hear that shit like 10 times a day, and it drives me insane.
Yay, marketing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a bold move because if it's either going to become associated with quality or crap, and depending on how that goes, it's going to make or break them.
Mario or Nindies?
But they all have the snap.
Gosh.
All right, sorry to interrupt. Alex, give your awesome speech that you're going to embarrass us all with.
Yeah, hold on. The video froze. I want to make sure you guys can actually hear me before I say anything.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess final
wait,
thoughts.
No, we can't hear him.
Am I back?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. The Addams Family,
Now
I think
you're
for
gone.
me matters because
Hold on.
just
no,
the
restart.
number of functions and roles that it
Restart.
serves in people's lives. I think. What?
Damn it, Kate.
Oh,
He has
I
a
He
did-
has his own audio.
If it's
Oh, I forgot about that.
Every time we could hear him, you'd say something.
Sorry. He said he
Where's
wanted
Discord?
to make sure we could hear him.
We
Rip
could, and then you
Myers.
stopped him, and then we couldn't hear him again.
No. I can hear you now.
Why does Discord hate Oregon?
Here's the thing. It's fine on my phone. It's just bad on my computer.
That's also weird.
weird.
Yeah. Okay. So I seem to be back now. So I'm just gonna do this while I'm back. I think the Addams Family matters. Not for any one thing, but because it serves a variety of roles. I think it is a gateway into like the spooky things and the horrific things for people, into macabre horror, and macabre jokes as children. But I think that the main thing that it does, and the thing that I like about it the most, is that for a lot of people that I know, and for myself included, it's kind of one of the biggest pop culture examples of how normal isn't all it's cracked up to be, and different can be good, and weird is okay, and that the ideal family that you think you're supposed to have might not look the way that you think it's supposed to look, and that there's a way to be loving and supportive and kind and to be generous despite how people feel about you, and to be kind despite how people feel about you. And the Addams Family just is a very, like, honestly, an exemplary family, like what people should be striving for. Like we talked about them wanting to have guests in their home, even if those people think they're weird, and wanting to support their causes, even if those people are kind of mean to them. And yeah, it's just like this really cool little gateway into weird parts of culture that people might not wander into on their own. And it is just a stellar example of like how to be as a person. I've been thinking about this a lot
Awesome.
since we decided we were doing this episode.
Aw. Yeah, no, that's real good. That's everything. And we'll of course end on it. So thank you for coming to talk with us.
Yes.
Thank you for the first of however many we do this month.
Like 4 or 5, something in there.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Somewhere along those lines. Why don't you tell everybody on the internet where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at mostalwaysalex, and again, frightday.com for horror and genre news and reviews. And then I do Game Boys podcast, and that is just a co-op and multiplayer gaming podcast that I do with 2 of my friends. And that is it, actually, at this point.
That sounded so sad.
You're almost there.
I'm just-
That's our goal from the.
I'm used to
By the end
talking
of the
about
month.
like so much longer when people ask where I am online, but like having ended the podcast and everything, it's like, oh yeah, it's a shorter list now.
And that's just it. Sad music plays in the background.
Yes. And a tear rolls down my cheek.
As always, you can find the podcast at But Why Though PC, and you can support us on Patreon if you want to help us out a little bit. Maybe help us get some better equipment. Maybe, I don't know, other things. I don't know. Our Patreon has all that listed. But you can support us at patreon.com/whatwhythepc, and you can find me online at OMammothRandier. Adrian?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Superruiz93, SUPERRUIZ 93.
Matt?
I'm gonna go find the secret room and take play on the water slides.